Buddha of compassion.
Shakti-bhi bhakta-bhishta palapradam harihara nana-bhushitam.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patricia Diorio, and this is The Paradigm Shift. Welcome to the contemporary talk show that inspires us to remember our magnificence as spiritual beings having a human experience, and as such, fully responsible for creating our reality, personally and collectively, with our every thought, our every emotion, and our every word. You know, I'm particularly excited about tonight's show because we're going to be looking at a subject that is a favorite of mine. And it's a phenomena that is totally unexplainable in our understanding of what is humanly possible. It is a phenomena that has yet been occurring across the planet for over 40 years. And it is a phenomena that inspires and challenges and baffles researchers, scientists, and spiritual seekers from all different disciplines to find a reasonable explanation. Well, to date, no reasonable explanation has been found. And of course, here I'm talking about the enigmatic crop circles. Our guest tonight is documentary filmmaker William Gazecki, who has recently released a major feature-length motion picture documentary called, appropriately, Crop Circles: Quest for Truth. Now here is a man, in my opinion, that is a true pioneer and a paradigm shifter around the art of filmmaking, producing, directing, and writing films that challenge our belief systems, that inspire us to break out of our boxes of limitation and push ourselves past our comfort zones. And William has come to documentary filmmaking from an accomplished career as an Emmy Award-winning motion picture sound mixer and record producer. Over the years, he has enjoyed success in the Hollywood entertainment industries, garnering several awards, not the least of which are 2 Oscar nominees, one for the Best Sound in the motion picture Rose, and the second more recently in '97 for Best Documentary Film for his film Waco: The Rules of Engagement. Today, William has turned his attention almost exclusively to documentary filmmaking. And this was born on his personal convictions, which are his desire to be that objective voice of the social concerns of our day, and his passion to make a difference in the community. And he has achieved both. Please welcome Mr. William Gazecki.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Pleasure.
Wonderful to have you here tonight,
Thank
William.
you. It's my pleasure.
Really, it's a pleasure.
All right.
So I'm so excited about this because it's been a favorite research topic of mine for years. We've done a couple of shows on this before.
Very good.
But I've really never had anyone of your background actually bringing your objectivity to a subject that's been so baffling.
Indeed.
So how did you come to a career as a filmmaker? Let's begin there.
Well,
As a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, when I was working in the record business originally, and really in the late 1970s, early 1980s, I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing of some very special men who became mentors to me. And at the time, I was really just a technician and just really focused on the technical side of it and learning my craft and, becoming a professional and showing up to work on time, things like that. And one of the men took me under his wing and said, you really have more going on than just being a technician. You have good opinions and you have good thoughts about the creative side of things. And I was like, really? You think so? Really? And that sort of started me on a path, and I initially became a record producer growing out of being a music recording engineer. And in the process of doing that, we did the feature film The Rose with Bette Midler, which in its day was particularly technologically somewhat of a groundbreaking Hollywood movie. In that we recorded all the music in live performance, which is very unusual. Usually when movies are made with music, they record the music beforehand in a very precise manner, and then they just lip sync it while the cameras are rolling. And in this instance, the producers and the director wanted a very live, authentic feel to it. And so for the Rose, they recorded all the music live. And that was my first introduction to picture. And I had this new discovery, which was sound and picture, which was really a whole new dimension. It was a whole new craft and a whole new discipline. And sort of hinging off of that, I got into doing sound for motion pictures and carried with me the same sort of conceptual approach, which is, yes, I'm just a technician providing services in the sound department for a motion picture, but you know, I'm interested in how they're made. I'm very interested in what the craft is behind the entire motion picture making process. So I studied, I went to UCLA and USC and took classes and spent most of the 1980s honing my skills and craft awareness behind the scenes while I was working as a sound mixer. And at the same time, I used to be a Boy Scout. So I've always had sort of a community interest and a helping others sort of interest in my life. And I began contributing donations to nonprofit causes, mostly environmental, endangered species, things like that. And as I began to do that, I started listening to public radio and Pacifica Radio in particular in Los Angeles, the KPFK, things like that. And I started becoming more aware of issues and things that were going on that didn't have a voice. And I got very riled up. I got very concerned about that. I just really felt a lack of a voice, a lack of this information being able to be disseminated to the public. And so I basically just sort of, walked my talk and decided that I would try and become that voice. And that's how I got into documentary filmmaking. It was really just out of my concern about the various and sundry issues of in our world, and thinking that it would be a good way for me to apply myself.
So I'd like to ask you a kind of a personal question.
Sure.
What did your personal spiritual life, how did that motivate you, or did that motivate you? Today when we were chatting on the phone, you were talking about time you spent up at Esalen. And
Exactly.
So what was the how did your spiritual life or path influence your work?
Well, I think like many people in the mid-1980s, I became very focused on the spiritual aspect of my life and seeking to expand my awareness of my own spirituality, and in the process of that began having more spiritually oriented experiences. And those were very deep personal experiences that I think, like with many people, had epiphanous qualities. They had epiphanies to them. And those are, I can still recall certain experiences where, for example, the first time I ever had a rebirthing session, because I was I've always been very much into breath work and the power of the breath. Yeah. And so I can remember in my very first rebirthing experience, I had a vision of 3 different films and that I wanted to make. And it was very powerful and very strong. And so I looked to the spiritual side of things pretty much as a commonplace at this point. It's sort of second nature. I mean, it's sort of a second nature motivator.
Right.
I think that my true orientation is very much of a spiritual, in a spiritual direction.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be the foundation of all of your work. I mean, I had a chance to review a lot of the more pushing the envelope type of films that you've done, and it's really amazing. It's wonderful.
I don't always focus specifically on a spiritual discipline.
Right.
But I seek to to enlighten people or to engage them in a way that expands
to wake them up.
Yeah, to wake them up.
Become conscious
Exactly,
of what they're not conscious of.
Right.